So anyway, hi. Thanks for coming here. Um, yeah, Box Days Zurich. So yeah, sorry for the technical delay. Couldn't get my uh, presentation on the board. Yeah. So yeah. So what is Qwik? So today we'll be talking about Qwik. So it's a resumability in the next generation of front end framework. Um, so I want to show this new kind of web framework that is, I believe, is quite amazing. Uh, so, but first of all, I want to introduce myself. My name is Ruby Jane Cabagnot. I'm a developer based in Norway for the past 4 years now. But originally, I'm from the Philippines. So yeah, so I want to talk about Qwik, which was developed by the creators, or one of the creators of AngularJS, and who is Mishko Hevery, and among others. So anyway, a little bit backstory in how I got into Qwik. So last October, I met Mishko in Poland in one of those conferences. So anyway, my husband and I were talking about, I found myself listening with Mishko and this other guy, Ryan Carniato. He's also the creator of Solid.js. I don't know if you're familiar with Solid.js. In one of the breakfast table in the hotel. So, and at one point, he asked me if I've heard of Qwik. And yeah, I was candid enough to say that I'm not that familiar yet. I heard a couple of times, maybe from some colleagues and from my husband also, but I don't really know it yet. So, but after he said that, so and for some reason, after that conversation, I started to hear people talk about Qwik, uh, especially in Twitter. So it got me curious, of course, and I started looking to Qwik. And honestly, as a front end developer, I was blown away because I think that Qwik could be the next generation in the front end framework because of its all of one loading time. So, okay, so what is Qwik? So, in a nutshell, it is a new kind of web framework that makes it possible for web applications or of any size or complexity and run the same way at any scale. Yeah. So sounds good to be good to sounds too good to be true, right? But okay, but before we can appreciate Qwik, we need to know first what is a problem or issue that Qwik is trying to solve for us as developers, and hence and the reason it came to be. So for this session, we will just talk about a little bit of the current different patterns, or overview of current rendering patterns, and then we'll take a look at the challenges of current frameworks, and why Qwik was developed, and essentially the problem the creators of this Qwik want to solve, or in other words, the concept of resumability in the next generation of front-end framework, which is the all of one loading time. And then let's have a little bit of demo on how to get started with Qwik and to see this resumability and lazy loading in action. So yeah, we have these different rendering strategies. So okay, now there may be, I don't know if you've heard of, let's say, millions of frameworks out there, but I would say there is at least a dozen or so different rendering strategies or architectures that we should know when building our web applications, whether it be in the server, the client, or all at once or partially, because each one of them can have, I would say, different trade-offs in terms of the user experience, performance, and also, of course, the developer experience. So yeah, let's take a look at them, and along with the frameworks that support them. So first, we have this static website. So I would say this is the most this is original and the most basic rendering paradigm. So basically, web pages are put together in advance and uploaded as static file in the cloud, a static file in the cloud, and then point a domain to them. Basically, it's not great for websites where data changes often or sites that require a lot of the interactivity. But yeah, most of these websites supported by like Hugo, 11T, and Jekyll. And then we have the MPAs or multi-page apps. So in this rendering strategy, so the HTML and data are put together dynamically over a server whenever a browser requests. So and any data changes or data transfer to the server leads to a new page being displayed in the browser. A good example of this until being now used are, let's say, the Amazon, eBay, and think of many other, especially big online shops or stores. These are classic multi-page apps. Frameworks that support them include like Ruby on Rails, Django, Laravel, and even CMS like the WordPress. And we have the SPA. So around 2010, we saw the rise of SPAs or single page applications like AngularJS, and then a few years later, here comes I would say the most popular React. So in the SPA paradigm, all the UI rendering happens in the browser. So basically, start with one HTML page as a shell and execute the JavaScript to render the UI, and then you just do the fetch for the required data with an additional HTTP request. But even though it is a SPA, it still can have multiple routes because essentially routes don't point to a server, but they're just being updated by the JavaScript in the browser. And for the end user, it may seem like there is an instantaneous rendering of the site, but some drawbacks for the SPA include that it can have a large JavaScript bundle, which can make the initial page load pretty slow. And then another thing is if you need SEO or search engine optimization for your site, it's very good. So yeah, that's SPA. So that's why a few years later, there's a newer type of framework that came to be, the SSR. So this is something that could render HTML and data on the server or the initial page load, and then hydrate to client-side JavaScript afterwards. The general idea here is that the initial request goes to the server and then renders everything dynamically. Then after the initial page load, the JavaScript takes over, and that will give you the, I would say, the SPA or the SPA-like experience. Okay. So the frameworks that supports this, we have the Next.js, Nox.js, VeltKit, and so forth. And then we have this static site generation. So all HTML is rendered in advance and upload to the static host like a storage packet also. But like SSR, it will hydrate to JavaScript after the initial page load. So the sites that built on this are called what we call Jamstack sites. And then here we have the partial hydration. So with partial hydration, the idea here is that you might render the components at the top of the page first, and then wait until the user scrolls down the page before making the component interactive. So there are many tools that support this code, what they call code splitting, to break your apps into smaller chunks to facilitate lazy loading patterns like this. And then, but well, it is possible to render, but this to render more efficiently with islands architecture. So you see, what happens with hydration is JavaScript takes over the entire page. So, but that's not very efficient because many components basically are static and they're not interactive at all. So, but with islands architecture, this is being facilitated by this framework called Astro. So with islands architecture, you start with static HTML and then use only the JavaScript to hydrate interactive components. And then for pages that are not interactive, no JavaScript is shipped to the client side. So even if you build the UI with a JavaScript framework, but there's one catch. Most JavaScript frameworks need to hydrate from the top down. So like for example, React and Svelte and other popular front-end frameworks right now. And then we have this lastly streaming SSR. So this one allows us to incrementally render parts of our UI to the client. So UI becomes interactive faster and feels more performant to the user. This one being supported by Next.js 13 with the app directory, the building blocks such as the React server components. So, okay, all of those paradigms. But if you notice, the problem with, or the issue here is still the hydration. So, what if there's a way for us to, do away with this hydration altogether? So, this is where Qwik or resumability comes to play. So, the word resumability is actually coined by the creators of Qwik. This is what I say, the new rendering paradigm. So the approach here is that the website and all of these data or state, and even the JavaScript event listeners are serialized into HTML. And then the actual JavaScript code is broken into tons of tiny chunks. So yeah, I will show that later, how they're being serialized. How Qwik is being serializing the application state as well as the event listeners. So this means that the initial load is always static HTML, and best of all, there's no hydration needed. Or the JavaScript is needed for interactivity is lazy loaded in the background using a service worker or service workers. So, okay, so here's the thing. Popular frameworks nowadays, like React, Angular, Svelte, what have you, employ the hydration principle, right? So, because this is needed by all current JavaScript frameworks to make the application interactive. But the thing is, this hydration process can be quite costly. Yeah, so this is a problem right now with the JavaScript and the JavaScript frameworks. Especially frameworks have become over time big because of these modern websites that require even more interactivity. And as our site grows, it just keeps on getting complicated, and so we add more code. The thing is, adding more JavaScript code down the application slows down the application startup. So as you can see, that's where the problem comes in. And like what I said, this can be a terrible user experience for our users, and especially terrible for lower end devices. Oh, thank you. And slower networks. So, like I said, what is the problem that Qwik is trying to solve? Because the unfortunate reality of today's web application is that they are way too slow on the initial load or startup, because like what I said, we ship way too much JavaScript on the client. So essentially we end up downloading like megabytes of JavaScript when parsing it on the browser, and then executing on the browser, and it takes a lot of time, especially for if you have a slow internet connection or like what I said, weak devices, and that also translates to having a bad user experience. And what's worse, it can, for example, for businesses, it can mean uh, for businesses to lose income. So yeah. So what about Qwik? So with Qwik, the resumable framework, with that's what what they're saying it with an O of one loading time. So why O of one loading time? Because basically Qwik is getting rid of hydration completely. So that makes Qwik application start up right away, regardless of any size or complexity, and it runs the same way at any scale. And yeah, so the basic goal of Qwik is to focus on the time to hope is clear, to interactive, by delaying the JavaScript as much as possible and take advantage of the browser's lazy loading capabilities. But in contrast, existing frameworks require a lot of code to be downloaded and executed before the page can become interactive. So what is Qwik is doing? So Qwik is different in this, like what I said, because it does not do, not use hydration. Instead, it uses resumability. So with resumability, the page can become interactive without downloading or executing JavaScript on the client. So because JavaScript is not executed on the page load, the page loop boot up is essentially instant. And yeah, the second part is that Qwik is progressive. Um, this means that the user starts to interact with the page, and the Qwik will start downloading and executing all the necessary code for that interaction. So in this way, Qwik applications are more like streamable apps, rather than downloading everything and then upfront before the interaction. So resumability. So since Qwik serializes everything into HTML, both the framework states and the application state, it can essentially resume execution instantaneously, exactly where the server left off. So in contrast to the other SSR or SSG, there's no need to replay all the application's logic and download a bunch of JavaScript. It's just there. So yeah. So now that you have a better understanding of how Qwik works, let's learn how to create or run a sample Qwik demo app and see it in action. Okay, first, you can choose whatever package manager that you prefer. npm create, and you just do the npm create at Qwik at latest. But nowadays, I prefer using the pnpm. Anyway, so the CLI will guide you through an interactive menu to set the project name. And you select the one of the starters and ask if you want to install the dependencies and so forth. And then just follow it. And also, yeah, let's do this in action. Okay. I'm just going to change. So I have here. Oh, yeah, cool. It's there. So I have here a simple web demo app that I'm here running my local host. So here I have account, to-dos, and stuff. Don't mind this three piece of code here. This is just for it's running because of the dev. I'm running in the dev mode. In production, you don't see that. Um, so first, I want to show, like what I said, how Qwik serialize the state as well as the event listeners. So So here, when I take a look, when I download I click the alert, you can see here, this is just let me show you how Qwik does doing the serialization. So, not, the Qwik downloads only the necessary code. In this case, when I click the alert, it downloads this particular button. It's click alert and alert. And then pay attention to this on click. This one. I'll explain that later what it is, but it's like a QRL or URL. As you can see, not even, they just downloaded, like what I said, the necessary code. You don't even see the framework that being downloaded. It's just the alert button. Okay, so, but let me refresh. And then I click the increment, okay? And then, again, it's just the increment button being downloaded. And here also, you can see another one, this one that's on click. Pay attention to this, I'll explain that later again. But like what I said, it's just the increment button being downloaded. And of course, this one the framework has to download in this case because for the UI update, this one. So how is Qwik doing that? Here, let me show you this one here. How it's being serialized. If you can see here, here we have this Qwik JSON. So this is how Qwik serializing all the state. When you see here the Qwik JSON here, is it clear? Yeah. So, and then this Qwik loader is how Qwik knows what are the components or the code being serialized, and then. And for the event listeners, like what I said, for example, when I click on this alert, and this one, wait, this is the same, like I mentioned earlier for here in when you click the button in the network, you can see this one. It's also the same. This is what you call the URL or QRL of Qwik, and that's how they're being recognized as being serialized by Qwik. And also, for example, with this increment button, it's also the same. You have this this particular thing. That's how it's being serialized. This is being done actually but this is a piece of code being called Qwik loader by the Qwik framework. So yeah, and then this one I want to show you also. This is cool. For example, the same for the to do. For example, let me refresh this one. So nothing is here. When I try to, only when I interact, for example, interact with the to-dos or the header, the input, that's when we show that the event listeners being downloaded in this particular case, when I just type it. And then also the same. For example, with this one, when I try to delete this one, it's only the time it's being downloaded. So that's why it's very fast. And there's another one cool here. So this is a lazy example of lazy loading or execution. So when you scroll down, let me this one so they can see. So at this point, there's no JavaScript being downloaded yet because you don't need that. So it's just like a static, like say and then watch. Still, they don't need the JavaScript. It's still not being downloaded, and suddenly it's there. This one because there's only time when you need it, when it comes to Vue. So yeah, so that's for the short demo for the how Qwik uses resumability or being serializes this application state as well as the event listeners. And then let's go back to the slides. So like what I said, how does Qwik do it? So if you notice here, if you look at the code, you see that there's a dollar sign here, and here also the use styles, components, and here. So this is a common, what do you call it, component dollar decorator. So whenever you see a dollar sign on your function or component or event listeners, that should tell you that this function or component or event listeners is being lazy loaded. So Qwik has this thing called Qwik Optimizer that will run in the build whenever you're building the Qwik application. So it will search for all the dollar signs to create the separate file for each function or component or even event listeners that it will find. So yeah, that's Qwik. And then they have also this Qwik City. So it's a meta framework built around Qwik. So basically, it has this directory-based routing, nested layouts, file-based menus, and data endpoints. It's like Qwik City is to Qwik, and then what's Next.js to React, or Nox to Vue, and then SvelteKit to Svelte. So yeah, to recap, so we have seen this various rendering strategies from the beginning, the current rendering patterns that being used today, and then that especially hydration or partial hydration, including the island architecture. Um, Also, but Qwik is on the server side by default. So, and then you don't have to do anything special on server side rendering. So you don't need to install or install a different library or activate some or do some configuration in your config file. Qwik's SSR is, how would I say that, behaves differently than other frameworks. It is resumable, and this is most important, I would say the most important distinction that you won't find in previous generation frameworks. So that this means that when it comes to straight transfer between the client and the server, developers do not need to worry. Do not need to worry about it. So Qwik automatically transfer any state that it finds or it needs from the server application to do it. So, like Qwik is going to take the data or inside your stores and serialize the data onto the page and only when it's needed. So yeah, and of course, time to interactive is pretty fast. And again, so Qwik has this fine-grained lazy loading mechanism. So in previous generation of frameworks, yeah, they have this what you call lazy loading mechanisms also, but you have to configure it yourself as a developer. So we need to somehow in our code define the lazy loading boundaries of our application. Typically, this one using the router, but with Qwik, lazy loading features just basically works out of the box. So basically, Qwik is going to automatically split your application into the smallest possible chunks of JavaScript. JavaScript. Yeah, so in my opinion, that's why I'm saying I'm excited about going forward about Qwik is because it's a new mental model that introduces resumability. Qwik is superficially similar to React if you look at the syntax there due to its familiarity with the API and the use of JSX. But basically, under the hood, it is quite different. Yeah, so like what I said, it's a big mental shift, but yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. And I hope you try to, just play around enough for now and then check out for yourself what it's all about. Yeah, so but if you have any questions, just let me know. That's all. Thank you. Any questions? Right. Sorry, I cannot hear. Cannot see also. Sorry, it's hard to hear. Oh, yeah, go. Sorry, I cannot see anything.
You hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. The first question is, if you go back to the demo, the alert button,
Uh-huh.
which is, if you click it, it always does the same, right? Is it downloaded only the first time you click it, and the following one, it is like cached? Or is the JavaScript snippet every time downloaded when you click the alert button?
Sorry, it's only downloaded when it's when the first time, yes.
Only the first time?
Yeah.
But I imagine if you click the counter button that is modifying some state, it will download every time or also only once?
The counter, you say the for example the increment button.
Yes.
It since the thing is with Qwik, it has it can if it needs because it will download. Sorry, the question again is if it's only downloaded being once.
Yes, the question is in case of the alert button,
Uh-huh.
it's always doing the same statically.
Yeah.
And has no side effect. It makes sense only download once. But if you modify some state or something else, is it also only once downloaded or
That
it has some more mechanism?
from what I'm saying, building download being once it can all can but it can what do you call that yeah, because the increment button it is a closure, right? I mean, it has a state outside. It has to use a lexical scope, right? So when you download it, when you click on it, there's a you also have to there's a additional download. It will only download once also.
And the more general question, how is the state managed if you only have tiny chunks of JavaScript downloaded, but somewhere you have to manage the state, right?
Actually, it's the same way when you do other like you write your code the same way also with other just like writing the way you do your code. This, for example, the state management, you use you have this context API or the passing the props the same. It's more on the Qwik. It's like basically whenever you see the dollar sign, it's really just the idea here is it's it's being serialized, so being lazy loaded right away by Qwik. But in terms of state management, it's the same the way we've been doing it, like in other frameworks. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I have one question. Is there some fallback if like the network is bad because it tries to download all these chunks and then if the network goes
yeah.
bad, the app kind of isn't
They have this what do you call prefetch. So it's the same way. For example, like what I said, this you have this prefetch like being done by the service worker. If it's for example, you go into a tunnel. as long as you get the initial request and it downloads everything that it needs. For example, for example, if there's a slow network or you go to a tower and you lose connection, it's the same way with other application that you do. You can still get the initial. You still get the interactivity as long as in the initial page load we're able to prefetch it.
So there's an additional background fetcher?
Yeah, there's a service worker that's doing the prefetching.
I have another question. So the basic idea behind Qwik is to discover with the interactive view what is to be downloaded. But when an element gets out of view, does the page forget about it and loads it again when it gets into view again?
I'm sorry, can you find a question again?
You said that, for instance, for the increment button, it was loading JavaScript first time you use it. Let's say then you scroll down the page and it gets out of view.
Yeah, when
you go back to it, it still knows about it, right?
Yeah. So you're saying like it's being downloaded when it goes into view.
Yes.
Yeah, and then the question is
if elements get out of the view,
no, it's only the moment it's downloaded. That's it.
Okay.
It's already there. Yeah.
Thank you.
The light is so can't barely see anyone.
Hi.
Yeah.
Thanks for the talk.
Yeah.
First of all, I have one question. What is your experience? Because usually now one of the recommendations, recommended way of architecting an application is that we try to centralize our logic, and basically components get very dumb, right? So they just send events and it bubbles up the hierarchy, and then on the top you have, let's say, a container component, and there you handle all the logic, right? So this is kind of a centralization approach, while this concept is more like a distributional concept, right? So I was wondering, if the components are very small and don't do anything, what's really the benefit? Is Qwik somehow able to slice up parts of a container component logic that is only related to one event and then the whole chain of events, and it's able to load that part partially, or does it then just need to load this one big container on top and that's gonna be there anyway? You know what I mean?
I'm not sure if I get the question right, but the thing with Qwik, it's not the same as for example, it's the usual the parent child relationship. Is that what we're saying? The thing with Qwik is it has, like what I said, it has a fine grained interactivity, so it has many entry points. That's why the serialization is how they. So it doesn't have, like, for example, you need if you need a particular interactivity for this code, if you need this particular code, right away it was just the one will being updated or loaded. You don't need to go through up the tree and then pass or download the what do you call that? If you need to update something, you don't have to go straight from the main or the parent component. Yeah.
But let's say, like, I load this button because I clicked on it.
Yeah.
But then the button just says, oh, I'm just sending an event that something should be done to the parent component. And then the parent component delegates it again to the parent component. And this big component outside is doing the whole logic. So how is that then done? I mean, yeah.
Based on, actually, I've based on my what I've seen, and I don't really have that much um, production experience in Qwik. It's more like because but based on my observation, I've been you know doing on my own. It's really, it will only download what's necessary, even if the child particular, for example, you need to update this child component, and then it has to reflect on, for example, on the parent. It will also, of course, update the parent, but it won't, like, there's no like a waterfall. If there's, it won't download or download something like Qwik knows, it's not smart enough to know which if it's not, even if it's like there's a child, another child of for example, the button has another child, or is it won't download if it's not necessary. It's just
the
really
interaction.
for the interaction. It's just really, for example, that particular button or this particular component. Just if it's, for example, you have button, like say buy button, and then you have the shopping cart. Those are just the two components that will be downloaded or updated. Even if there's like, for example, the shopping cart is other like child components being connected there, it won't download.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Hello, thank you very much for the great talk. I have also one question. So in your demo, you've shown that, like, of course, if we click on a button on it, then we get a handler, makes sense. But then you were scrolling, and then there was this clock. And the clock was also only loaded when it came onto the screen.
Yeah, on the view, yeah.
Right? So is there like some special API where you have to mark this component? So what's the difference between like loading on click and if it just comes to view? So why the handler for the button was not loaded when it was just on the screen, but for the clock, yes? Is there like some special API for that, or how does that work?
Like what I said, it's more like is sorry. Can you rephrase the question again?
Sure, please. So we know with the Qwik, like when we click on a button,
Yeah.
it lazy loads the handler
Mhm.
only on click.
Yeah.
But then we had the clock,
Mhm.
and the clock was automatically loaded when it came to screen.
Yeah.
So I'm asking, like, if there is like a special API in Qwik to mark that clock as something special so that it loads.
When you look at, it's really just the same. When you like what I said, the clock component, or it has the, whenever you see the, like what I said, the dollar sign. Sorry, I got my laptop, but there's a dollar sign whenever for every component or event listeners that you create in Qwik. There's a dollar sign, and then it's also the same. It's being lazy loaded, meaning it only being loaded when it's needed. So, like what I said, when it just comes to view, that's when in being needed. Like say the Qwik is smart enough to know, like, okay, so now it's not being is being rendered or being seen in the UI and being rendered. So that's when it just download the JavaScript for this for that interactivity. There's no like special in the sense. Special in the sense, everything is just being down, like what I said, being lazy loaded in Qwik. So you put the dollar sign in your component or in your function or in your event listeners, and yeah, out of the box, everything will be lazy loaded. Yeah. Yeah. Any more questions? The light is so bright.
Hey, thanks for hey, do you hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. I'm here. I have a question. Can you control lazy load of events, and can you make them dependent? Because I mean, going to the offline in Swiss into a tunnel is super common. And for example, I want to create a flow. So if user clicks on this button, I also preload other part of JavaScript. So let's say my calculator app will work.
Ah, It's like it's talking about like it's like the same as PWA or something.
No, like I want to make other JavaScript
Uh-huh.
dependent on first click and
Uh-huh.
also load it, even if it will be not used.
Ah, I think so, but I'm not sure. But the thing is with with Qwik, as long as you get the initial request, and then there's a like what I said, there's a prefetch. So it's the same. Actually, this it works the same with any other frameworks that you use. If but as long as you get the initial page load, it is there. Even the like say interaction or interactivity for a particular event listeners. Uh, it's if it's already downloaded, you can use it. Even you went to a tunnel or something, but of course, like any other application, after a while, if it's not you were able to download it, it won't work also. But if you're saying if there's a way to control it, is that it? Yeah. I'm not quite sure actually. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Like make it more like what you say, like download everything. Yeah, like I'm not quite sure. Yeah. It's like saying it works like something like you're saying if it's gonna work like even offline, everything the app you're saying like that, like PWA or something like that, right? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Yeah. Sorry. So yeah. So if there's no more questions, thanks for coming.